That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
I got a hold of the 4-issue miniseries that came out in 2000, Green Lantern versus Alien. It's one of those interesting little things that we got because it was the 2000s and people didn't quite know what to make of everything, and it was crossover time and stuff like that. And so we got this interesting little story about what would happen if the Green Lanterns came across the Xenomorphs. And you may notice it's clearly Hal on the first cover, and then Kyle on the second. That seemed really strange to me. I knew this was not in any continuity, or not like in actual continuity anymore. So I was kind of wondering, did they put them like as a team or something? Because that's a weird decision. But no. What happens in the first issue, and you could almost read, if you really wanted to, the first issue just on its own and consider that the Green Lantern Aliens crossover. A little disappointing, if that was all it was. But on the last page, we see a setup for where the rest of the story comes from. So let me talk about the first issue. This takes place in space, where the Xenomorphs have landed or have developed a nest, and the Green Lanterns are called in to fight them. By the Guardians, they're called in to go deal with the problem. And just gonna go through this. I miss early 2000s pages. Green Lanterns are investigating the alien nest, and then they're attacked by the Xenomorphs. Really cool art in this. I'll get to a little nerdy complaint in a second here, though. So they're attacked by the Xenomorphs, and the Green Lanterns rally together and are able to form a bubble around themselves, and the aliens are completely ineffective at that point. They have absolutely no way to get through the bubble. Their acid blood doesn't affect the constructs, because why would it? And so they talk about, well, what do we do with these things? Do we just kill them all? And Hal's like, no, we're not exterminators. We have power over them. They're just instinctual. They're like, sharks. Sure, they're dangerous, but that doesn't mean you just kill them. And so the Green Lanterns take all the Xenomorphs off of whatever planet they happen to be on and deposit them on an uninhabited world where they'll be safe and no one will be harmed by them. Mogo! And the idea is, well, it's just a good way to help them out, because they're just kind of dumb animals. And it's a good way to help Mogo, or it's a good way to help the rest of the world out. So that way Mogo can keep them isolated from other people that go and land on the planet. Only problem is, Hal Jordan destroys the Green Lantern Corps, and Mogo is less than sentient now. And a ship crashes on Mogo. And this takes place 10 years after the Xenomorphs were deposited on Mogo. So, we get the Green Lanterns that helped Hal. Oh, whoops, that's issue number 3. Issue number 2, however, is right here. The Green Lanterns that helped Hal deposit the Xenomorphs there, go and find Kyle Rayner on Earth, and they get him to come help them on this mission to, because the ship crashed on Mogo, so they get him to come and help and fight the monsters, the aliens. And there's some butting of heads, because Kyle doesn't do things the way that Green Lanterns normally do, and yada yada yada, and that was the entirety of Kyle's run on Green Lantern is, well, you don't do things the way Hal Jordan did. Nope, I sure don't. Um, and they get on the ship and they meet like a scantily clad woman who points a gun at Kyle, and they talk and a bunch and decide to go try and save her crew with her and blah blah blah. They're cornered by a pit by the xenomorphs, and all the lanterns are carried off except for Kyle and the girl and Salak. But as Kyle tries to save one of the lanterns from falling into the pit, his ring slips off, which, as a plot point, doesn't make any sense. Because the ring's not supposed to just be able to be slipped off. Especially not while you're concentrating on trying to save somebody's life. So, yeah. Also, the other complaint I had is the xenomorphs. They look like traditional xenomorphs, which would be fine if they'd infected humans, but they didn't. They infected random aliens. See the problem there? So it's a stupid little nitpicky complaint, but it still bothered me, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like the problem with this book, and I'll summarize the rest of it here just real quick. Kyle and the girl go down to the pit to try to save everybody. Kyle is forced to make the decision to kill one of the monsters since he has a gun now and can't save everybody with the ring and keep the aliens alive. He makes the decision to kill one of them, and they eventually get down to the queen in the nest, and Kyle makes the decision, once he's able to get a hold of his ring, that the only right thing to do is to kill all of the xenomorphs. Which, I'm a little vague on that one. So I think the problem with the book, and why it's not really fondly remembered, is that, if you're going to have a Green Lantern Xenomorph crossover, someone that's a fan of both properties should probably write it. And I feel like whoever wrote this was maybe a fan of Alien, but not really, because the Xenomorphs don't really do much at all. But they definitely weren't really big into Green Lantern. At least not... I certainly don't get that impression from what I read. This really did just feel like kind of a phoned-in crossover for sales' sake, as opposed to someone actually had a story to tell. And so I was disappointed by that. But Kyle and Slok have a conversation about why they didn't just kill the xenomorphs in the first place. And Slok says something to the effect of, well, it was a nobler time back then. We could actually stick to our ideals, and we didn't have to make hard choices that often. The Green Lantern Corps seemed undefeatable at that time. And then, so Kyle making the decision to kill all the xenomorphs and some Green Lanterns because they'd been infected. It just made sense at that point that that's what you'd do, because there's a no-win scenario. You either go deposit them on another planet and wait for this to happen again, or you just get rid of the fucks. And so he chooses to just kill them all because they don't contribute anything. They're just mindless animals, and they're too dangerous to be kept alive. And so that's his arc, and he wonders if he made the right decision. It's not a very good crossover. I was ultimately disappointed by it. The novelty of Green Lantern versus Alien wears off after the first issue. And really is one of those things where it might just be worth reading the first issue and then that's it. You know, skip the last 2 pages. Because all you do is see the ship crash, and I don't know. I was certainly disappointed by the story. It wasn't nearly as good as I feel it could have been. It's not like any of the ideas in it are bad. I don't feel like they were explored enough. Because, you know, it's only 4 issues, and it's a really basic plot. Let's go save this crew. Okay, we can't. Let's kill all the xenomorphs. And there's an android twist in it, and I guess that's just a thing with Alien, is you need to have an android show up somewhere randomly. So I don't know. I was certainly disappointed by it, though. I thought you could have gone a lot of different places with this, or at least done something that was more fun in a novel way than what we get. Because it really is just, you know, Green Lantern, we got to take his ring away because otherwise they're too easy to defeat, versus the xenomorphs. Well, if they're too easy to defeat, you throw more at them and you find a way to make them actually a threat to Kyle. Kyle didn't have the yellow weakness, obviously, but you could have done something. You could have, like, overwhelmed him or just made his, you know, battery level too low for him to do too much against them, so that he would have had to be smart about how he was fighting them. Just, there are other things you could have done. You could have made it a lot more fun in a novel sort of way, as opposed to just pretty typical kind of meh story. Yeah, I wasn't thrilled by this, obviously. If you are curious and you want to get it, try and find just the first issue. And if that doesn't do it for you, don't bother buying the others. If you can only find the whole story arc and you can get it cheap, I got this with the Predator vs. JLA comic that came out around the same time. So for me, it was worthwhile. Getting them together like that, it made the whole thing worth the, I think, $18 I spent on it, plus whatever shipping. So if you can get, you know, a good price on it, and you're a really big Alien fan or a really big Green Lantern fan, then it might work for you. But for me, it was just okay. It was pretty typical story.
That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.